Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more seconds and then we'll get started. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Humentum's webinar with industry partner, the Conterra Group, on coping with isolation and managing anxiety. A bit of housekeeping first. All our attendees are currently muted. To ask questions and participate in the conversation, please utilize the chat box. You can find the chat box by hovering over the bottom of the Zoom screen and then clicking on chat. So just to make sure everyone is able to see it, we want to ask, do you prefer cats or dogs? If you could put in the chat what you prefer, you should see the question there as well. And that will just let me know that you all can hear me and that you are seeing the chat box and able to respond. Great. So it looks like we've got both. Dogs are winning at this point. Rabbits. Okay, great. So glad to see that most of you are aware of where the chat box is. I think all of us have learned very quickly using Zoom how to use it. So the webinar will be recorded and you'll be able to access the recording following the webinar along with several other resources from the Conterra Group. For those of you who are new to or unfamiliar with the Conterra Group, they exist to support the health and effectiveness of organizations and their people. Conterra supports organizations that manage international development, humanitarian, and emergency management operations. Conterra specializes in providing support to clients that operate in high-stress environments, both inside and outside the U.S., where organizations and their staff face difficult challenges. I'm just going to add this from the official, they've been an industry partner and addressing these issues for a long time in partnership with Humentum and are perfectly positioned to address it with COVID-19 coming around. So we're really excited to have them. I'm pleased to introduce our presenter and co-moderator today. Elisa Lewis is a licensed clinical social worker and PhD who specializes in stress, depression, anxiety, and resilience. She has more than 15 years of experience providing psychological support services to adults, children, and humanitarian workers. She's currently based in San Francisco, California, and lives with her husband and young son. The session will be co-moderated by Kate Allen, who recently joined the Conterra Group as the Director of Account Management. Kate has 14 years experience supporting clients with their global employee benefits. She is thrilled to be serving the NGO community again via Conterra's mental health resiliency services, as well as partnering with Humentum. Kate will be reading through the chat comments and questions that come in throughout the session today to provide support there and help with the conversation. Humentum is grateful for the Conterra Group's support as an industry partner. And while we're not excited about the situation that is making this an important offering, we are pleased to have them helping with the webinar today. With that, I'm happy to pass it over to Elisa and Kate.
Thank you. Kate, would you like to do a brief introduction or would you like me to start?
No, thanks. I'm all set. I just wanted to say thank you so much to Jessica and the Humentum team for partnering with us to put this together. And, we're excited to go through the session today. I'll hand it over to you. Thank you, Elisa.
Thanks, Kate, and thank you, Jessica. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. I really want to thank you for being here and for taking this time for yourselves during this very unsettling and uncertain time. So as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic is having major impacts on all of us and all of our families in so many different ways. And I'm really happy to be here to support you with some tips and tools on coping with isolation and managing anxiety. And so, although I am someone with professional expertise as a Conterra consultant around stress, anxiety, and resilience, I'm also a real person who needs to be reviewing all of these strategies and practicing them as well with you. As mentioned, I have a son who is 4, and it's been very difficult to explain to him repeatedly why we cannot go to the playgrounds anymore. And recently he just started asking why he's not going back to his daycare, his preschool, missing his friends. And so this has been really tough, like kind of trying to developmentally explain to a 4-year-old what's happening. And then I also have 2 parents who are over 80 who they live in the Bay Area. Luckily, I'm near them, but they're very worried about their health. My father actually has a heart condition and diabetes, and he still actually wants to go to the grocery store every day or every other day. So not only trying to just support them emotionally, but trying to help convince him not to go and to bring groceries and do everything that I can to help be there for them. And so, well, we know that everyone is stressed right now, and I'm curious to see what others, of course, are going through. You're also very busy, so we are going to keep this fairly short today and simple. So I'd like to go over the agenda and just describe the things we're going to discuss, and we're going to be meeting for about 40 minutes. And then after that time, we're going to open it up for questions and discussion. So the first thing we're going to discuss are common reactions during the outbreak, tips on coping with isolation, tips on managing anxiety, and then the question and discussion period. And so before we even jump into this first topic, I wanted to see if people could use the chat box to identify where you're calling in from, because I'm curious if people are all over the world right now, what time zone you're in, if you're at home, whether you're, if you've been stuck somewhere, just to get a sense of like, where are you all? Okay, so great, I see some East Coasters, a lot of East Coasters, Bolivia, okay, London, New York, great, Baltimore, Nepal, all right. So we do have a very diverse group so far. Senegal, Belgium, Zimbabwe, great, Guyana, excellent, thank you so much. So again, I just wanted to really thank you all for dialing into this today, because it sounds like there are going to be many different perspectives that people can share today, as well as ways probably you all can support each other based on all these different places where you are right now. So knowing that there has been an infectious disease outbreak, it may affect you and those you love. It's unavoidably stressful. And this felt stress curve often mirrors the outbreak curve. And so there's a slow start and a build, and then there's a sudden exponential surge. And so logistically, although the slower build can be good, as it allows people and organizations to prepare as best as they can, psychologically that can be really difficult. And so this waiting period that we've all really been in, when everyone's watching and wondering and kind of, we don't know what's going to happen next, is really taking a toll. And then add on top of that any additional stressors, such as having to change your routines, extra childcare for those of you or those of us who have school-age children, financial stressors for many. And it's no wonder that most of us are feeling extra stressed and anxious right now. And so I'd like to ask you all again to feel free to share in the chat box. What are some of the reactions that you've noticed in yourself and in others in the last couple of weeks? And I think Kate and I will chat a bit while people are thinking for a moment about what have you noticed in yourself. So Kate, I was curious, like, what have you noticed lately? What's been happening for you in your world as far as all of this, the pandemic goes?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. It definitely has been what I would call a roller coaster of emotions. So I'm in a really similar position to you, Elisa. I have a young 3-year-old toddler, and for him it's been difficult not really understanding why he can't go back to daycare, and similarly misses his friends and going to the playground. And I've had a lot of anxiety. I'm also 36 weeks pregnant. And so there's been a lot of, I guess you could say, coping that I've had to really do, to prepare for what could happen and with the delivery and things like that. But yeah, it's been a lot. I don't want to take up too much time. I see a lot of great chats coming through.
Sure. Yeah, please give some, thank you everyone for responding. Kate, do you want to go through some of the common themes that are coming up?
Yeah, definitely. So I see sadness and grief, feeling disconnected, paranoia, overwhelmed with supporting others who are feeling stressed and anxious, weird anxiety dreams, Fluctuations of emotions, that's like me with the roller coaster, feeling fine and then feeling stress and anxiety. Feeling exhausted, need multiple naps throughout the day, inability to concentrate, some muscle tension, inability to focus is a popular one, difficulty sleeping, feeling lonely, overworking, and concern for loved ones and elderly parents as well.
Wow. Yes. So exactly. There's so many, I'm sure, like similar experiences that many of us are having, or a combination of all of these things that you've shared. And so before I go through the common reactions on the slide deck, I just wanted to remember that, you know, everyone reacts differently to emergencies. Like some people seek information obsessively, some get angry, some pick fights, like for real or online, which is something I've heard a lot about. Some panic, some make a lot of jokes about the situation, some deny the problem, some get terribly active and are very efficient and productive and want to help people. Others withdraw and kind of fall off the radar and become, you know, just, you know, you don't hear from them, like I've experienced with some people. So these are all, though, fundamentally coping mechanisms, and for the same thing, which is at root, like a deep sense of fear and loss of control. And so they're all valid. And at the bottom line, like we really need to be kind to each other. And, you know, that's including if people are aggressive or argumentative with us, which is hard to do, or overbearing. And the experience suggests that we'll all have a bit of a meltdown, and probably cry at some point, which I have, I'm sure, definitely. It's just the way that it goes. So I wanted to kind of go over some of the common reactions that you all, I think, have noted here. So feeling more anxious, worried, and tense. Jittery, distracted, unable to focus, which does make it very difficult to work. So it's something we can discuss how that's affecting people. Finding yourself thinking about the outbreak, even though you're trying to focus on other things. So this is something that not only doing, you know, reading or research about it, but also just not being able to stop the thoughts about it is something often people are noticing lately. And then as well, wanting to research things constantly. And we can talk about, you know, how much is helpful, how much is too much, because I think that's been a common theme. A general sense of high energy. I think someone mentioned in the chat of feeling really tired. So these high energy, sometimes people feel kind of almost hyperactive and then crashes. So the kind of the roller coaster you were describing of feeling like that it's very difficult to like kind of know if you're gonna have energy to work or do other things, and then feeling exhausted and needing to take a nap. Difficulty sleeping. I think this was one of the first things that I experienced, was having a really tough time falling asleep, staying asleep, just a high level of anxiety. Isolating or withdrawing from others. So I think there's definitely, I mean, it's not even a fear of going in public spaces. It's not a safe thing to do at this point, but also just not wanting to be around people. Some people have that, that reaction. And then craving more unhealthy or dangerous things to cope. So this, I talk with people about, you know, if you drank alcohol before, you might drink more right now. If you smoked, you might smoke more. So really being aware of like some of the more unhealthy habits or vices, and trying to do some other things that could be healthier ways of coping. And so again, the common reactions during self-isolation or quarantine, many of us are now living in these contexts in which it's a stay-at-home or a shelter-in-place. And so I would like to go over some common reactions that people are experiencing. There's a lot of grief and loss related to the impact of this crisis. There's anger at the government or those perceived to be responsible for the crisis. And I think this is something too, of this question of, you know, when you have friends or family or colleagues who want to vent and express themselves and they're angry, like, how does that feel? Are you one of those people, or is it upsetting for you? Kind of how do you manage those types of conversations? Feeling bored, restless, or irritable. Again, a very common reaction, people feeling on edge or feeling kind of like there's a, like time is kind of slowing down, or feeling really bored because you're not doing all of the different things like going to work or, you know, going to events and doing these, seeing friends, things that you're used to doing. Feeling disoriented, as if you're losing track of time. think sometimes people are describing how days kind of just blend or melt into the next day, and this is kind of disorienting. Similarly, maybe feeling numb or disconnected, as if you're just going through the motions. So kind of every day just feeling like, you know, you're just not as connected in the same ways that you were prior. Feeling that life has slowed down and gotten small. I think that makes sense. If actually the physical, you know, your ability to actually move around and to go outside of maybe the blocks of radius of your neighborhood, or even maybe not going outside at all. For some who can't, or only being able to go out on a terrace or a balcony or backyard. I think I'm kind of getting a little bit bored of my backyard at this point. So feeling kind of trapped and like contained. Rapid mood swings. I think that's something that came up, right? Just if the noticing that you might feel gratitude for what you may experience right now versus others, and then grief for others who have lost a lot or lost loved ones. Feeling calm to then feeling really anxious. These are all very normal reactions to be having right now. And then this is in the future, and hopefully not too far out future, this question about, you know, how we'll feel once we do return to work, or we do return to life as we knew it. You know, will we feel very nervous or anxious or reluctant to be in public again and to resume those activities? So again, it's something to be hopeful about and to anticipate, but also maybe it can create some anxiety too of what that's going to feel like. Okay, so, and again, we already may be past this stage of preparing, but I do like to just briefly mention that anything that you can do now to increase your sense of safety, security, and structure will help you at this time. And there are always some steps you can continue to take to decrease risk. Like when you have to go out to the grocery store, I see it, you know, and I think that's a huge trigger for me lately, is when you do have to go out, how do you feel? How do you manage that stress? And how do you actually just protect yourself? And so just remembering that there are these things that you can control, like washing your hands and doing whatever it is. Oops, I got the wrong button. Anything that you can develop some sort of action plan to reduce risk, especially if you're leaving the house or you're having to go out and kind of retrieve things that you need, essentials. When you're stocking up, when you need to get medication, all of these things. Again, interesting just to notice how you respond in those moments when you need to actually go out in public and be around other people. And most people at this point are advised to wear a face mask, and some wear gloves, and just depending on kind of your situation, whether you're able to go out or not. And then also, you know, being prepared, being able to, if you're able to order things online, can you buy some things that can be helpful for being inside, for entertainment and all of that. Okay, so I'd like to talk about the next step in this is coping with isolation and things to remember. And thought about this and realized that, you know, there may be a few things that I'd like to, you know, just share with you to think that could be helpful during this time. The first thought is that you have coped with difficult situations in the past, and you'll be able to cope with this one too. I think that helps us realize that we are resilient and that you get through this, and even in going through those memories that you may have of times in the past that were really difficult or challenging. The second is that this is temporary, that this isolation will end and that life will resume its normal pace, even though it may feel like this is very daunting. Things will, you know, return to a normal pace in time. And then to choose patience whenever possible. This one has been a difficult one for me, for sure, especially with a 4-year-old, and especially living in close quarters or working in home offices together, you know, and for those who are alone, even just if you're interacting with people and managing just kind of irritability and different things that are coming up, is just trying to have extra patience for yourself and for others, and knowing that this is just an extremely difficult time. And so before we move on to some tips on things that could be helpful, I'd like for everyone who is willing to please share something that has helped calm you or anchor you during this time. Like, so something that you've done that's been helpful, calming in the last week that's just helped you cope with these new routines that we're experiencing? And maybe Kate, while people are hopefully chiming in on something that they've done, maybe we could chat for a moment about anything that you've noticed that's been helpful for you in the last
Sure.
week or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been trying lots of different methods. So things like, going for walks, that's been really helpful, spending extra time with my son, getting fresh cut flowers. Well, actually asking my husband, because I'm not doing any of the grocery shopping. I'm letting him take that risk right now. But having fresh cut flowers in the house is really nice. Making sure I'm connecting with, loved ones and close family, friends. That's helpful. Trying not to look at my phone at night right before I go to bed. That's when it's hard because I'm like, I want to see the news, but then I don't because I really want to cut that down. But yeah, just different things like that. And I see lots of great things coming in. Stand-up comedy, I've been doing that too. I've been watching some on Netflix.
Yeah, please share. It looks like a number of great ideas or the things that people are doing to help cope have come through. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So breathing exercises, journaling, meditating, puzzles, working out, baking, going for walks, getting creative with cooking, wake up early, have coffee, then work out, pray, yoga, practicing music, spend as much time outside as possible when it's sunny. Painting, that's a great one. And scheduling calls with friends, early morning walks. Don't watch the news often. Watching happy movies instead of news, also a great one. Let's see here. Sitting on my windowsill on nice days. More about working out. Doing the virtual calming meditations, listening to live concerts, online games with friends. I've heard of that one.
Great way to connect too. Yeah, have fun and connect.
Absolutely. These are great ideas. Doing some cleaning, starting a gardening project, virtual game nights and Zumba with friends. Also great.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Creating a new structure, a video call with family every night, the Great British Baking Show.
Oh, good reminder.
Hanging stuff at the window to make people smile. That's sweet. I like that one.
Love these things that I've seen too. I've seen a lot of different like hello or smile or some Easter things or all sorts of things. Yeah, it's been nice to see. Wow, what great recommend. I mean, please keep them coming, and we'll mention them. I'm going to start going through some of the tips that that I'd like to help or also recommend, but I think basically they've all been given at this point. But again, connecting with people you love, so helpful. Even though we can't see people physically, often what we can likely be able to reach out to them by email or phone or video. So be proactive about reaching out to people, asking how people are doing or catching up to them, scheduling time to chat. And it's especially important if you live alone. A little note to that caveat is that also the act of writing is something that I've been talking with folks about. The idea of writing someone a letter, sending someone a card, sending someone a letter or thank you or hello if you haven't caught up with them in a long time. I've heard of people reaching back out, after like almost years, sometimes saying, I've always wanted to, see how you were doing. Or so for some people right now, they may have that time to process, oh yeah, who are these people that are out there that I am thinking about? And it's nice to probably get something in the mail too these days when you're not having a lot of other things going on. So creating a routine and structure for your days. So try to keep up as normal a daily routine as possible, whatever normal looks like for you today. And so decide how much time, if any, you're going to allocate to work and when. And also try to identify other things that you want to do during the day. and list these out. So you can create like a daily to-do list for yourself, and for, you know, family members, including children, because that can be helpful if they're of that age. But so put some productive tasks on that list, like spending, you know, time, you know, like with work or schoolwork or whatever that might be. But then also put some fun things on that list, like, you know, reading books or playing a game or just spending time with your kids. And so when you accomplish the things on your list each day, it can give you a sense of structure and achievement and some control. And regular exercise, I think, Kate, that was something that came up repeatedly, which again, and I'm even recommending, you know, daily, if possible, something, because it's a mood lifter. It helps with stress, anxiety. It's just so important. So if you have exercise equipment in your home, that's great. Use it. But there are also lots of like free online classes of yoga, Pilates, different, you know, 7-minute workout, all sorts of things. So, and try to put that on your to-do list every day. Doing things with your hands and projects around the house that you never get around to. I think I unpacked some box that I never unpacked from a move 2 years ago. So things that make you feel like, oh, like I finally did that. And also with your hands, this is extremely helpful with stress. It's like a moving meditation. And so cooking, gardening, cleaning, drawing, knitting, I think I saw a number of things come up in the chat around this. Whatever it is, it's going to really help calm you. And it's also not involving a screen. So it's very helpful in that sense too. And then doing something fun that you don't normally take time to do. So it might be enjoying a good show. It might be creative outlets. Someone said painting, things like that. You know, a new book, buying a new game, just anything that's fun. I think some people have mentioned, like, you know, playing an instrument that they haven't been able to play for a while. Anything that you feel like you can do now that kind of gives you that sense of fun in your day. And I also wanted to go back for a moment just to say the idea about the projects around your house. I think people have found that that's very helpful and meditative, that like reorganizing a closet and doing something like that can also be very helpful. Learning something new. Many websites are offering free or deeply discounted online classes, lectures. So you could, you know, there are so many things out there. One of the ones that's been pretty popular is Yale's most popular class, which is the Science of Well-Being. And that's being offered free online. Right now I have signed up for it. I did check out like the first little section of it, and it's actually really good. And the topic is how to be happier in your daily life. Even though our daily life is not that normal right now, I'm sure there are going to be some useful tips in that. And also recognizing that it's important to plan some time out from the people that you're living with. If you do have the benefit of living, let's say, with other people, it still can be a bit stressful to be with each other all day and not have many breaks at all. So planning some time, whether it's, you know, if you can take a walk, or if you can just even be in separate spaces in your home, or if you have kids, like trying to break it up into kind of little smaller groups. So again, recognizing that being together all of the time can be difficult. Getting fresh air. Of course, I think we mentioned this, like if you're able to go outside safely with the social distancing guidelines that are, you know, being recommended, getting outside in the fresh air and nature can be extremely helpful. Take stock of essential items that you might run low on. I know that someone mentioned going to the grocery store and doing these things can be very stressful. So like having that list, I think, can help prepare you to, you know, and planning the day and planning like where you're going to go can be helpful, just kind of managing. And also that kind of fear around just not having a lot or having enough at home. And so, you know, again, reviewing your supplies, making lists so that you maybe don't forget anything, so you don't have to feel like you need to go back out again anytime soon. And try not to spend so much time consuming the news. I think that's something that was also mentioned in the chat. Spending too much time watching the news is definitely going to create stress. It's, you know, it usually ends up in some infinite rabbit hole on the internet, and it really can negatively impact your mental health. Staying up all night reading articles is just going to leave you sleep deprived. And so that often just makes everything feel and seem worse. So try to ration your news consumption. And we can talk more about kind of, you know, tips on that or recommendation. And reach out for support if needed. You can always contact your organization's staff care program, your doctor, or other professionals for support and advice. And this is, of course, if, like, you know, if you are feeling extremely anxious and overwhelmed, if it's really affecting your quality of life, if you're noticing any depressive symptoms, like, you know, trying to and it's becoming unmanageable, please reach out for support. Okay.
So Lisa, really quickly, we had a couple of questions come in on this topic. So one was, you know, what if, you know, you're trying to do a lot of that already, but then you feel overwhelmed by the number of conflicting priorities. So meaning, you know, you have your kids to manage and then work and those needs. Then you're also trying to balance it with cleaning and cooking more, and you know, making sure you're checking on elderly relatives and single friends, and then also trying to maintain some level of physical activity, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess before I pass it over to you, I just want to let that person know, like, I can relate. I am definitely one of those people that takes on a lot, and I want to accomplish many things every day. And what I have learned is sometimes I just have to slow down and really, really reprioritize as much as I can. And that way it helps me get a shorter list of what I'm going to accomplish that day. And I, you know, kind of personally say, I know that pregnancy has slowed me down. I'm at the end, I'm very close, which means I'm more tired. So I may want to clean the whole house like every other day, but I can't. And so then I focus on, well, what can I do? And that maybe, well, let me spend time with my son, get some fresh air and exercise, hit all of those three things off by going for a walk together. So anyway.
No, thank you. Okay, that's excellent advice. And I mean, I'm probably going to mimic what you're saying. I mean, I think there are so many things that we're going to be, you know, presenting today as options, and please don't try to do them all in one day or even in 1 week, because, you know, that will be exhausting. So picking a few things each day is excellent, you know, advice. And I think it is tough. You think about wanting to check in with all of these different people in your life that you love. And even for me, I feel like, well, have I called my parents enough? Did I check in with my brother? Did I check in with my friends who were living alone? Like, but I can only do so much any given day. So I've even set like 2 days a week where I'll check in with, you know, my parents, and then, you know, with friends, I'll try to schedule some things, but if I, you know, miss some here or there, it's okay, because it's difficult, because life is just generally more draining lately. And so it's harder to keep up with all of these things. So having, you know, being kind to yourself about that. And like you said, kind of setting realistic expectations about how much you can do any given day without guilt, you know. So even if you don't get to exercise each day, like, that's okay, you know. If you can go on a short walk, that's great, you know. Just like kind of, yeah, just being kind.
Absolutely.
Anything else before I go on, or did you want to?
There was just one other question that came in, tied into the topic. It's asking if we have any recommendations on diet at this time. You know, what we should be eating more of to keep ourselves healthy, both physically and mentally.
Great question. Yeah, I think the idea that lately what's been a huge topic is the comfort food eating. And I've been doing a ton of baking, and I mean, it's just really difficult, right? Everyone's kind of seeking some comfort through food, or many people are. So how do you stay healthy? I think that, you know, some of the best things, if you or if you have access to it, of course, are like fresh fruits and vegetables, and trying to incorporate new recipes with, you know, maybe possibly more vegan, you know, types of recipes in mind, experimenting with new healthy recipes. I mean, I think that would be really, and I think I'm trying to cook with my son a few different things. Like, so trying to figure out what are these ways that you can incorporate healthier eating. And I don't have any specific type of diet I'd recommend, but I mean, even just the idea of like having a few vegetarian meals throughout the week, having some, you know, maybe a vegan, experimenting with a vegan meal, just so that you're mixing things up and that you're maybe like incorporating something that's just a bit healthier. I know I've been trying to do like maybe juicing, if you have a juicer, or if you're able to, you know, I don't know, fruit salads and all sorts of fun things that like maybe you don't have time to do in a typical busy work week.
Yeah, that's great advice. I've been trying to do, again, maybe once or twice a week, like a fruit smoothie with my son. It gets he and I both eating, you know, fruits and fun things like that first thing in the morning or whenever it is that we do it. But yeah, it's something small. You know, I agree with you. It's making the small little goals instead of, oh, let me change my whole diet. And it's like, you don't want to overwhelm yourself. You know, like I like what you said. It's important to be kind with ourselves, just like we are with everyone else. So that was great.
Great. Well, I wondered if we can come back to some of the other comments, and thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. These are so important and helpful. But I wanted to, you know, just mention that everything so far that we've discussed helps with anxiety, because it increases your sense of safety and connection and control. But I wanted to take some time to look more specifically at anxiety and what are some of the tips to hone in on managing that in particular. And so learning about the virus, even though I just mentioned not you spending too much time reading about it, there is something that's actually beneficial about and calming about having information about it. But these are just some tips about, you know, sticking to reputable sources, limiting the time with the news and social media, and then specifically focusing on what you can do to minimize risk. And so, you know, the research has shown that in natural disasters and terrorist events, people's media exposure increase as our media exposure increases, so does their distress. So please try to be strict about how much news you're consuming and how you consume and when you consume it. I think that a couple of guidelines we've talked about are, you know, if you can check the news twice a day, maybe in the, you know, midday, maybe later in the afternoon, just so it's not early in the morning, it's not at bedtime, because of course it's not a great way to start your day, and it's definitely not a good way to go to sleep, right? Because it can create those dreams or nightmares, or, you know, just difficulty sleeping if that's the last thing that you're thinking about before bed. So I'm curious too, I'd love to hear what people have to say about, you know, ways that they're managing their consumption of the news. The other one I think we've just touched on a few times is to try to put your phone down. Device addiction is on the rise, and technology overload related to our smartphones is one of the main culprits of information overload. And so our devices are often in our hands, or just like, you know, a foot away. And so and this can really erode, like, you know, the time that we could spend with others, or just doing other things that are more creative, or actually help reduce stress. And so, you know, just notice how much you're tempted to look at your phone, or how often you're picking up your phone. Because it's interesting how we must like deliberately kind of, you know, create time for our space away from screens, our phone. And so a couple of the recommendations are, you know, to try to charge your phone, you know, not in your bedroom if possible, in a different room. So that's not something that you're reaching for right first thing in the morning or first thing at night. I think some people have said, well, that's my alarm clock, or that's my, you know, but I say, well, maybe you could get another alarm clock. Like, so just to kind of figure out what's going to work for you. And, you know, make sure that, again, that the time on your phone isn't replacing time that you could be connecting with other people. And anything else, I'm curious, like if there are things that people do, we can maybe chat about that as well. Give yourself a dose of pleasure every day. I know I mentioned this with the scheduling, but so just really being mindful about something that you can do, even if it's something small, like, you know, having a cup of coffee that you really enjoy, or tea, or something that's just, you know, reading a book or coloring in some book. I think I definitely have an adult coloring book that I've used that is nice and relaxing, which is, you know, like more intricate. But I also enjoy coloring in my son's coloring books. If he's doing it, just, it's something that's just very relaxing, doing that kind of, you know, meditative kind of behavior with your hands. So just something that you enjoy, even if it's 10 to 15 minutes each day. Just figure out what that might be, and give yourself that. The next is talking about training a positivity orientation. And so this means, you know, because right now, of course, due to this very stressful time, I think our thoughts can go to very negative or daunting or worrisome types of thoughts. And so even just practicing, like, you know, this orientation around, like, what's something positive that happened today? Did I check in with someone and they were really happy about that? Or, you know, did someone else kind of reach out to me, or send me something that was, you know, nice, a nice article or something? What did I learn today? Like, it could be something internal, like learning about yourself and a reaction to something, or it could be something new that you got to learn. But just kind of thinking about, you know, trying to notice positive things each day. And on that same line of thinking, having a gratitude type of journal or practice, or mindfulness exercises. This is a great time, if you don't already have any type of practice like this, to start. And for some, they'd like to write these things out and, you know, have it be 3 things they're grateful for, like in the morning or in the evening, or just to think about. Just take a moment to like, let yourself on your own think about some things that you're grateful for. And mindfulness exercises, I think this is something that is extremely helpful. There are many different apps and ways of, like, you know, meditation apps and mindfulness types of training apps and books about it that you could research and practice today. A couple of more tips are breathing strategies. I have, you know, talked with a number of people who've experienced sort of like panic-like symptoms lately, especially when they're reading the news, or, you know, hearing about really horrible things that are occurring, of course, all over the world. So some of these calming strategies could be very helpful, like deep breathing, like 4x4. It's like 4 counts in, 4 count out breathing. Prayers, mantras. I think someone in the chat mentioned prayer, and I think that of course is going to be extremely helpful right now. Yoga and stretching, and there are, again, many apps. Calm.com. Please share if you have other apps or resources for calming strategies, because I feel like you all probably, you know, maybe are tapping into some of these, and it might be nice for us to be able to share. There's one called Buddhify. There's one called Headspace. There's Tara Brock is a meditation expert. And so she has a ton of things online that are free. So these, again, could be very helpful. And then, like I mentioned earlier, reach out for support. If you're noticing that you really are feeling overwhelmed and are struggling, therapy sessions can be offered online, of course, by video or by phone. And so again, to check with your, you know, organization, if, like, see what the resources are, see what the benefit is, especially if you have any history of anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder or depressive disorder, or any other mental health challenges. This time has exacerbated a lot of those symptoms for people. So really encourage you to reach out for support if that's the case. All right. Kate, I just wanted to do a quick check-in if there were any chats that came through that would be important to share before I ask them to share one takeaway. Yeah, anything else that you...
There were a couple that came in. So someone mentioned set up a do not disturb rule on your phone so that you don't receive notifications after a certain time. And I love that, because I started doing that myself before all of this happened. So I think mine is like 10 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning. And really forced me to stop checking my email. I still haven't tried charging my phone in another room at night. I'm just I'm so
Yeah,
used to it. I am going to try it though. I really am, because I do think that's a really great idea to, disconnect, the technology addiction there. What else? Someone said set a specific time each day for checking and listening to the news, and then refrain from the COVID-19 news for the rest of the day. I think that's really great. I shared the app that I personally really like for meditation called Insight Timer. I really recommend that one because it has a lot of free content if you don't want to pay for, the subscription that I think Headspace and some of the others offer. And then someone did ask, what kind of mindfulness books do you recommend? I was trying to think of a few. I mean, I feel like there's lots of different directions, but I'd love to hear from you on that, Elisa.
The first one that comes to mind is The Power of Now
by Eckhart Tolle. Yes,
exactly.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, you could type that in if you want, or my box is a little down there. So yeah, but there are, if you Google them on Amazon, I'm sure that you can get a number of highly rated ones, but that one is very good. And like I said, there are probably a lot of others that would be recommendations. Well, at this point, I'd actually love for people to be able to share one takeaway, like, so something that, that was helpful to hear today, hopefully, something that you can try, or something that maybe it's something that was a reminder, something that that you've been wanting to do, but just, haven't gotten around to, because we are approaching the time that we really want to just open it up for some questions at the end. So yeah, please feel free to, in the chat box, share one thing that you hope to take away from today's session. And I really have appreciated, there's so much sharing and kind of giving feedback in the questions that have come through today. They've been really, really great, helpful for everyone to support each other in this way.
Absolutely. Okay, so some of the comments coming in. I was happy to hear the inability to focus is a common reaction. I was being hard on myself for this. Find things to do that do not involve a screen. That's a good one. Great reminders all around.
Great. Yeah. Well, and again, that inability to focus, or the feeling really distracted. And I mean, that is just what almost everyone is experiencing today. And so, and I think this relates to if you're feeling like pressure in any way, let's say work-wise, or even outside of work, just pressure on yourself around being there for other people, to be kind to yourself about it, but also to ask, if it's a work situation, what are the options here? Is there something, flexible hours, or what can I do, just to get that support? Because I think people feel like, they want to still be as productive as they were before. And with all that's happening with the way that, all of this anxiety and emotions, it's just draining. And not only distracting, but like I said, it just physically is draining for people. So to be mindful of that, very important.
Definitely. Here's another comment. They said, thank you for this. The presentation was just summarizing all the important issues, how to handle stress in situations, not only COVID-19. Someone asked, what should we be expecting of ourselves work-wise in terms of productivity?
Yeah, well, and again, it may be different for each person, but I think what I've heard and noted for myself and for many others is that you'll have like kind of waves of energy, right? Where you may be able to be more productive at different points or different time, and it may not even be the same each day. But so just being aware of that, and not being so hard on yourself if you are noticing that you're just really exhausted, or if you are distracted, take a break, take a walk if you can, get some air, have that cup of tea or whatever it might be like this. So to maybe allow yourself to just try to be productive and as much as you can, because that also can be helpful as a, not only that maybe you want to and need to for your job, but it's also a distraction, but also not really forcing yourself or being, like I said, really hard on yourself if you're not able to. So I can't necessarily give like, number of hours, like instead of 8, now 6. But I think for many, they're just noticing that, they may have blocks of time where they say for like, maybe 3 hours, I feel like I can, with some breaks, be productive. And then I, need to take a bit of a break and then maybe come back, or, and just noticing, kind of being very aware of physically and emotionally how you're doing each day, and trying to like, plan accordingly for your work day. And then, like I said, it's helpful if you can check in with your, managers or whoever else you may need to, your team, just kind of letting people know if it's a tough day. And I'm guessing people are, and I'm hearing that people are really coming together, supporting each other now, and very understanding, because we're all going through this together. So hopefully there's not shame or anything about having to, say that.
Absolutely. A couple other comments that came in. Thank you for the presentation. We are in this together. And it's nice to be able to find a place to share our feelings and experiences at this challenging time. And then another one said, their takeaway for today is the reminder that I could be spending my time being more creative or finishing a to-do rather than spending time on my phone or, reading the news regarding COVID. Another one says, thank you. This was really helpful for me and my family. I've actually been sharing this information with my family since we're all going through the same thing. Thanks again. So yeah, a lot of good feedback. And I'm trying to think of what my key takeaway will be today. I think I want to try the gratitude list, even if I just do it once next week. That could be my goal, where I just take a day and write down the things that I'm grateful for. That always helps me shift my perspective if I'm having a challenging moment or day, which can happen with a toddler. So.
Exactly. Right. That's so important. I mean, and something, I'm sorry, there's a siren here. Something that came up was, this mindfulness, I think, was important, is important for many people, because if we tend to look out maybe a few weeks or month, I think that can feel pretty overwhelming. But if you're trying to stay in the present moment of like, what am I doing this moment? What am I doing for the next 10 minutes? Like, and just staying there, or zooming way out and thinking about, okay, when things resume, what it's going to be great to see family. It's going to be great to have, different events or trips or things. And so kind of just not like staying in the here and now or far out, because I think there's something about thinking about, oh, wow, are things, what is it going to be like over the next few weeks and months? I think that's pretty upsetting, or can be kind of unsettling. And so, yeah, the mindfulness piece, I think, can be very helpful.
Definitely. Here's another comment. During usual daily lifestyle, we were always complaining not having enough time for family and ourselves. And so now we have time to think and to do what we wanted. I said, again, thanks a lot.
Oh, that's true. And I think, yeah, for those of us who, have families and are, with them, that can be a great, just, I don't know, just this time to bond and to like, again, have like unlimited time with each other before you're kind of, running around, or even with my husband and I taking turns. Okay, you're on with our son. Now I'm gone, you're gone, that kind of thing. And actually just being able to settle into some time together is actually very nice. And I've heard a lot of people actually comment about, I don't have to commute anymore. And this idea that for certain people that, was a stressor, and, long commutes in the Bay Area, and they're enjoying it for that reason. So kind of picking out the positive aspects of it, the things that can help calm you and ground you and allow you to like feel appreciative of certain aspects of this time, even though we know there's so many very upsetting factors and things that are going on as well. Well, I know we're getting close to our time boundary here. So I wondered if, yeah, if there's any last comment or chat that would like to be mentioned, or we can, start to close out because we're almost at the hour. But again, I'm so impressed with all of the things that people have shared and all of the work that you're all doing to try to manage during this difficult time, and just joining us today to give this support for yourself and for others. I think there's something about coming together in this way, knowing you're not alone, knowing you're going through and experiencing a lot of the same things with so many people right now, is just can be very, very helpful.
Hi, Elisa. Yes, thank you. And Kate as well. Thank you so much. While we see if there are any other questions coming in, I just want to answer the one that's in there now about access to the PowerPoint. Yes, we will share the PowerPoint as well as this recording with everybody that is on the call and anybody that registered. So if you weren't able to make it, or you had a colleague that something came up and they couldn't join, we will share this. I also am going to save the chat actually, and I'll remove all of the identifying information from the comments, but I think it's really important for people to see that, they're not alone in feeling this overwhelmed or the changes in productivity or work focus. And so we will have that also in the materials folder, so that when people go through, they can get that experience of what everyone else is feeling. They're not the only person dealing with that. And then also some of the resources people mentioned, so that they can see what else is available besides the ones that Elisa mentioned. And then I also just want to flag, we will be offering this same webinar in Spanish. We're still waiting to confirm the date and time, but that will be on our website under webinars, under your events, once it's confirmed. And then we'll also share it on Humentum Connect and our normal webinar promotional outlets. And then we also have some other upcoming webinars that you can find. And Conterra, as I said, has amazing resources available. We will be, again, sharing those with the recording and the presentation as well. Some of those are like managing staff through stressful times, guide on dealing with stress. So rather than the presentation, if you just need like a 1 or 2 pager, we'll have that. And then the resources mentioned here and the contact information as well. So we've got a lot of resources available to you. Elisa and Kate have shared even more here. And then they're also available if you have questions at events@conterragroup.net. And then membership, we're always available for you at membership@humentum.org as well.
Great, thank you so much. Well, like I said, it looks like we are at about the hour, so I'm not sure if there are a couple more chats that have come through, but yes, thank you all so much. I have so much empathy for you all. I'm really grateful for your presence today and your participation. So thank you for the work that you're doing for yourselves, for your families, for your organizations. And so please take care of yourselves and stay safe and be well.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Elisa. Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you to everyone who attended. Yeah, please remember to take care of yourselves and each other.
Mm-hmm.